broad accolades, but in some cases, Justice Carpio was misunderstood. Well, according to Emerson, to be great is to be misunderstood. I believe that Justice Tony Carpio can bring greatness to the Supreme Court and possibly renewed glory. With that note, thank you very much.
Thank you, Justice Hermosismo.
Secretary Mosngi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Magandang hapon po, Mr. Chief Justice.
Good afternoon, sir.
I'd like to say it is indeed a personal honor and privilege for me to propound questions to the Chief Justice of the Republic of the Philippines. Chief Justice Carpio, you started law school, and before that you were a graduate of the Ateneo de Manila University, the degree of economics, and then you started your career by entering the University of the Philippines College of Law. You and I were previously students of law. I'm sure we share the dream, the same passion of learning the legal profession in law school. I'm sure you had your own romance with law. But after law school and after passing and topping the bar, I am certain that you entered your legal career with the same zeal of idealism and hope to carve out your own sense of the legal profession. Then you entered the practice of law at namulat kayo sa tunay na mundo ng abogasiya. In the real world, you have staked your claim, you have practiced law as a member of the bar, and you have practiced law as a member of the bench. Now you are in the point of your career, you're aspiring for the post that is the most coveted of any legal practitioner, every legal professional. What is your notion of this? How does the law remain still beautiful in your eyes? What is your sense of still, right now, the beauty of the law? Has it been corrupted in your eyes after your long practice? Has it remained attractive and alluring to you?
Well, in the Supreme Court, you find the practice of law, if you put it that way, in its purest form, because you decide cases based purely on the law, based on the Constitution and on the statute that complies with the Constitution. And if you decide cases that way, then you have this satisfaction that you are applying the law in its purest form. I have practiced law in the private sector. I have taught law. I have been a legal counsel in the executive department. But I find law in the Supreme Court the best law that I can find, because here you apply the law in its purest form.
Maraming salamat po for that. Chief Justice Carpio, if you recognizing two important concepts in legal parlance, one of which is judicial independence, and the other is judicial interdependence. What do you think is best for the country right now?
Well, these concepts of judicial independence or interdependence of the branches, commingling or merger of powers of different branches, must all be found in the Constitution. And in the Constitution, you have a clear separation of powers. You have the judiciary that will decide what is the law with finality. You have Congress that will promulgate the law, that will enact the law, and you have the executive that will implement the law. But you have also, under the Constitution, an area where there is a check and balance. You have the impeachment power of Congress to check the Supreme Court and the executive. You have the power of appropriation of Congress to limit the expenditure of the executive and the judiciary. And you have the power of the executive to propose to Congress what should be the budget. Congress cannot increase it beyond what is proposed. So here is a merger of powers. Congress is supposed to have the power to appropriate, but it cannot appropriate more than what the executive proposes. Now, the executive is supposed to spend the money, decide how to spend the money, but the judiciary has fiscal autonomy, and the executive must release automatically and regularly the budget of the judiciary. And the judiciary may realign if there is a law. It cannot realign savings without a law. So again, there is a check and balance. So the other concept of interdependence or commingling or merger is actually this check and balance. Then you have the third concept of merger of functions, interdependence of powers. Here in the JBC itself, here in the JBC, you have one representative from Congress, one representative from the executive, one representative from the judiciary. The three branches are sitting together exercising a power, the power to screen out nominees. But they are only screening out. The ultimate power to appoint from the list comes from the president. See, the power of appointment is supposed to be with the president, but this body is sharing it with the president by limiting the choice of the president. And this body is composed of the three branches. But still, we have the regular members of the JBC, you have four, and they're appointed by the president with the consent of the Commission on Appointments. So it's a power shared again between the executive and the legislative. This is, I think, an example of interdependence, if you want to call it. I would prefer to call it convergence of powers. Still, there is another area of convergence of powers, and that is the budgeting process. And I have mentioned that already. So, whatever you may call it, you call it interdependence, independence, commingling, merger of powers, it must, however, be found in the Constitution.
Maraming salamat po. Just two more, Mr. Chairman, please. One of which is, do you plan, after retirement, do you plan to practice law again, Mr. Chief Justice?
No, after retirement, I plan to teach in the UP College of Law, maybe also in Ateneo de Davao if I have a chance to go back to my hometown.
As a final question, Mr. Chief Justice, we lawyers, we are aware of certain legal and immutable principles, one of which is the presumption of innocence. Another is the presumption of regularity in the performance of public functions. And the third that comes to my mind is the presumption of good faith in all our dealings. If I may solicit your opinion, very respectfully, Mr. Chief Justice, do you think that the pendency of an administrative case against a nominee for Supreme Court justice should bar him or her from being considered?
Well, I would like to be excused from answering it, but in any case, I will answer that. That decision lies with the JBC. You adopted the rule. And if you want to exempt anybody from the rule, you can exempt it. It's up to you, really.
Again, maraming salamat po at thank you very much,
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Secretary Mosngi. I'm thinking of questions to us. Anyway, because they already asked about your programs, Chip, how to solve clock dockets, computerization, lahat na tanong na about your programs. Tanongin ko naman kung your functions now, what are you doing, so that the public may be enlightened, because you have been in the court for 11 years. I remember when I joined the court, my first time to come to this court, you gave me a book about justices of the Supreme Court. And then I had problems then because I had the most number of cases. I think I inherited 1,300 cases. And also remember that you told me that it will take time before you get rid of your docket. And I vividly remember, and you told me that in order to learn the work of an associate justice, you need at least 3 years. Do you recall that, Chief Tony?
Yes.
But because I was ashamed to ask a follow-up question, I did not ask you. Kasi ibang dating sa akin eh. Well, there was a time that my wife worked with you in a case when you were the Presidential Legal Counsel. When I was newly married, I used to fetch my wife in all these meetings. Ngunit ibang dating sa akin eh. Nahiya ako eh. So I did not ask him. Sabi ko, parang natakot ako. You need at least 3 years to learn the work of a justice. Sabi sa akin, natakot ako eh. Ito, tatanungin ko na ngayon. Tatanungin ko na sa kanya. Why did you give that answer to me, Chief Tony?
Well, in my case, it took me 3 years to really be comfortable with the work here in the Supreme Court. There are a lot of procedures here in the Supreme Court. And for you to really battle it out in the discussions in the Supreme Court, you must have a firm grasp of a wide range of areas of law. And for you to learn this and to have a full grasp, you must do this every day. And after 3 years, then you are ready, really, to discuss point by point any aspect of law. I said it took me 3 years really to feel that I can speak with authority in the en banc and battle it out with the justices like Justice Mendoza, V.V. Mendoza, with Justice Davide, Chief Justice Davide. And that's the reason why I said it takes 3 years, really.
What about, because you are vying for the position of Chief Justice, you need 3 years to learn the work of an associate justice. How many years do you need to learn the work of a Chief Justice? That's why I did not join the nomination, because this is only my 4th year. So I want to ask him, how many years do you need to learn the work of a Chief Justice?
Well, I think to hit the ground running, you must know immediately the problems of the judiciary. And to know the problems of the judiciary, you have to observe it for a length of time. There are so many problems in the judiciary. That's why people are complaining about clogged dockets, alleged corruption in the judiciary, lack of infrastructure. And we have to address this. And it took me some time, really, to find out these problems. Right now, for example, I just talked with our people in the Office of the Halls of Justice. They have problems of paying on time. Utilities in the provinces, they're unable to pay on time electricity bills, telephone bills, water bills of courthouses, of halls of justice. So I told them, look, you get the list, get the bank accounts of all these utility companies, and we deposit the check here in the land bank. And we just tell them the check is deposited already in your account here in the land bank. Right now, what we do, all the courts, the clerks of court will send the bills to Manila. We process it here, we prepare the check, we mail the check, and along the way, the checks get lost. When we can all the time just deposit it here. And there are so many problems like that. And you will remember that in the end bank, we always agonize because we always dismiss clerks of court who run away with cash collections. And it happens all of the time, all this year. So I called up the OCA the other day, and I told them, I want, this is a simple problem. I visited other judiciaries abroad, and I asked them the same question. How do you safeguard the funds of the judiciary, the filing fees, when they are paid to your clerks of court or cashiers? Said, we don't have that problem. Why? We require them to pay the bank directly or to pay us in check. So there's no leakage. And that's what I told the OCA, to prepare a circular that I will sign requiring all clerks of court not to accept cash anymore, to accept checks. And if there is no checks, the filing fees will be paid to land bank branch. And most of the municipalities, municipal halls where the courtrooms are located, are just across land bank branches. And so the land bank has given us a list of all their branches nationwide, which are located beside courthouses. And so the clerks of court cannot complain anymore that the litigants have a hard time preparing the check. They don't have checking accounts, or they cannot. They only have cash. Well, if they have cash, they can go right across the street where the land bank branch is located. And we can just do away with all of this revenue leakage. Now, all of this takes time to understand. And it took me a long time to understand this problem.
Another thing, no? Because you are the longest serving member of the court, probably the public do not know. Aside from our functions in the court, adjudicatory, administrative functions, we are also members of the HRET and SET. Is it not?
That's right.
You were once a chairman of the HRET.
That's right.
I also sit as a member, but not yet a chairperson. It will take time also, because I'm just learning. And then you sat also as a member and chairman of the SET. Will you please enlighten us? What were your functions as chairman of the HRET?
Well,
the House Representative Electoral Tribunal, for that matter.
Well, in the HRET, every election you receive around 140 election contests, and you have to decide this before the 3-year term of congressman, and otherwise it will be useless. Before, when the elections were manual, we have to go over each ballot one by one, and of course the objections are written by one hand, several ballots written by one hand, and it was very tedious to go over this. Now it's automated, but still the parties want to go to the ballots instead of just relying on the flash drive. And of course, you have to decide these cases before the end of the term. Otherwise, it will be useless. So it's a lot of work in the HRET.
What about, have you presided already a meeting of the monthly meeting of the Philippine Judicial Academy, being the chairman of the Board of Trustees?
Yes, Judge, I have already presided, I think, twice.
Oh, that's also another work for a Chief Justice.
Yes, that's the Chief Justice chairs that body.
You also chair the what we call the Mother Rule. The
Mother Rule Committee.
Yeah, the Mother Rule Committee, the revision of the rules of court. Then you chair the Judicial Bar Council.
That's right.
And you should be on top of what is happening about our budget.
Yes, that's the function.
Can you also, because I'm not yet there, no? I'm not yet there. I do not know. These are the only important committees that I remember. Are there other committees that you chair where you have to pay special attention? Yeah, I remember now the PMO and the GRSP, the World Bank loan, and so on.
Well, the Chief Justice is on top of all of the administrative functions in the Supreme Court and even in the lower courts through the Office of the Court Administrator. The OCA administrator reports directly to the Chief Justice, and a lot of the problems are in the trial courts, and a lot of administrative work. When I sat down as acting chief, 90% of the papers that I sign are on travel authority. A clerk of court in Tagum wants to go to Hong Kong during her leave of absence. You have to approve that. And I said, we sign all of these documents and we never disapprove any of this travel authority because they're all on their approved leave. So I said, we just decentralize this to the OCA, and that's what I've done. I've been decentralizing a lot of this work because otherwise you'll do nothing but sign all these papers.
Yeah, before you became the, shall I call, acting Chief Justice or senior or what? You were once before you were once a chairman of a division. In fact, I was one of your members. Can you tell us what you actually do as a chairperson of a division in the court?
Well, as chairperson of a division, you have to see to it that the decisions, the draft ponencias, do not conflict with the ponencias of the other divisions or with the en banc. That's your primary function as chair. Then, all of them submit the synopsis. Synopsis is a practice I introduced when I joined the court. Because when I joined the court, everybody during the meeting will present orally the case. And I would see them reading. And I said, why don't you just give that to me and I will read it the night before so that the following day we can decide that fast. And so that became a practice in the entire court. So everybody submits a synopsis. Now, it's the chairman who must see to it that because in those synopses we decide whether to dismiss an appeal outright or not. So the chair is responsible to see to it that that synopsis is correct. And that is the responsibility of the chair. Now, the chair is also responsible for seeing to it when he certifies the decision, when it's already signed by everybody, that there are no typographical mistakes. I mean, you have to see to it because it will reflect badly in the court. Grammatical, typographical, that's even your problem. And so I have a staff who goes there, but I have to read again to make sure. There's a lot of reading. I stay awake up to 12 midnight before a division meeting just to read all of this. And sometimes I cannot finish, so I wake up early so that I can read everything before the 10 o'clock session. So it's a lot of work, really. Here, people, when they coming from the Court of Appeals and they realize the work, they are shocked. And they said, life was so serene and happy in the Court of Appeals. Well, he said, well, you better work on your cases because you will have a lot of backlog. And in fact, I was telling Justice Sereno, you better decide on those cases right away because if you postpone and postpone, you have to require them to submit a memorandum already and you have to write a full-blown decision. At this point, you can just dismiss that outright if you want because why do you have to write a decision when you are just affirming everything that the Court of Appeals said? So if you just affirm, don't write a decision anymore. 5 years, when I was doing the court, I was aghast that we have to write a full-blown decision when we are just reprimanding an employee or a lawyer. When we are only fining 1,000, we have to write a full-blown decision which is published in the SCRA. And I said, why do we spend so much time writing a full-blown decision for these minor matters? And it took me 5 years to convince the court to adopt the zero backlog policy. In that zero backlog policy, I said, optimally, the Supreme Court can decide only 1,000 cases a year without being reckless. We can decide 1,500, but we will be reckless. We will not polish our decisions. We will not be able to really give our thoughts to it. So optimally, we decide 1,000 cases. If we can decide only 1,000 cases, that means we cannot accept more than 1,000 cases for the writing of full-blown decisions. We must filter these cases. So how do you filter the cases? First, if you are just repeating what the Court of Appeal said, you are just reiterating, you are not changing anything, why do you have to write a full-blown decision? So we just dismiss that outright. Now, you write a full-blown decision only if you are reversing or modifying the decision. Also, we have a lot of administrative cases because we have 28,000 employees in the court. And as I said, we just reprimand or admonish, you have to write a decision. So we adopted the rule under the zero backlog policy that if the penalty is less than 10,000 fine or less than one year suspension, you can say that we adopt the findings of fact of the investigator and the conclusions of law investigator, and you attach it to that resolution. So we have cleared a lot of these administrative cases. So, you start with the premise that we can decide only 1,000 cases a year. And from there, you will have to find out how to fill these cases. Now, you might, the Supreme Court of the United States decide only 90 cases a year. They have 9 justices, and they decide only 10 cases per justice per year. We decide 1,000 cases, full-blown decisions. That's an average of 66 decisions per year. In other words, we decide 6.6 times than a U.S. Supreme Court justice decides. So, and in fact, other justices in other judiciaries ask me that, and I tell them, we decide about 66 cases minimum. That's our average. And he said, that's being reckless already. You should decide less than that, otherwise you cannot give it a lot of thought. But I said we can do it because we have a big staff. But, there has been an explosion of cases filed in the court because we have now almost 100 million people. And you expect a lot of cases if you have a population of 100 million. So we have to devise ways how to decide these cases.
You are now an acting Chief Justice now. And you are the presiding officer of the NBank. Do you still preside the deliberations in the First Division, Chief?
Yes.
Second Division, I mean?
That's right, Justice. Unfortunately, because I still remain as chair of the second division, I have to attend to the second division. I have to attend to the NBank. I have to attend to the PhilJA. I have to attend to everything that the Chief Justice attends. So I'm actually doing the job of 2 offices now, and I hope that this process will end so that I can go back to the job that should go only to one person.
You may or you may not answer this question. Is there then an edge of an outsider over you? I said you may or you may not.
Well, I think in terms of knowledge of what the judiciary needs to do to be fair, honest, and efficient, I think we in the court will have an edge because we know the problems. But that may not be the only consideration. There are other considerations, and I will respect the considerations that the President will follow in exercising his prerogative. But as I said, when it comes to knowing the problems of the court and when it comes to really understanding and discussing and finding solutions, I think we have done that. And that's why we have a lot of these initiatives now and that we're doing.
Huling tanong. Galing sa Twitter ito po, ha? Tagalog kasi. So Tagalog ba ito? English pala. You may or you may not answer. Having been very good friends before, compares even, do you think that you can ever be friends with the former Chief Justice?
Yes, why not? I mean, we can always forget and forgive.
Yeah. Have you seen him lately?
No, unfortunately, I haven't seen him lately.
Okay. Do you want to see him?
Well, we actually invited him during our inauguration of the Angeles City Hall of Justice.
In Angeles?
In Angeles City, because he was also the chief then when that was being constructed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. On that note, Chief, wala na pa. No more questions from you.
Thank you, Your Honors.
niyo pong natunghayan ang huling